Hello, Lovelace. Welcome to today's wider curriculum lesson on our map reading skills. Now, today we're going to focus on one particular feature of a map, and that is contour lines. Now, contour lines indicate how high a bit of land is, and they can be really useful, especially if you're on foot and you want to know where the steepest slopes are and maybe places to avoid if you're not a particularly good climber. But we'll take a look as we work our way through today's lesson. Okay, so as I've said, the ability to understand the shape of the ground from a map is a useful skill to learn, particularly in mountainous landscapes and when you're out and about walking or hiking. So far we've looked at the different OS symbols, so we can find a public phone, or we can find a hospital, or we can find tourist information and so on. But today we're going to focus on the actual shape of the land itself. So you know if you're approaching a hill or a valley or a mountain, you know if it's going to be really, really steep or a really shallow climb. So it helps you prepare for your day's walking or hiking. Okay. Now, here's a map we've seen before. Now, this is an OS map. And last time we talked about the roads, and we talked about the church at the end of the road and the public phone and all those things. But we're going to concentrate for today on these brown lines, because a contour is a brown line drawn on a map and it joins points of equal height above sea level. Okay, so we take a measurement, so the level of the sea as being 0, and then we count up, we measure how high the land is above that 0 point. Okay, so we're measuring meters. So if we look at these brown lines here, you can see that every now and again there is a number. And that number tells me that everywhere on this particular line is 70 meters above sea level. Okay, so that line sort of snakes its way across the land, but all the land at those points is 70 meters above sea level. And if we walk this way, we go up to 75 meters. So between there and there, we've climbed a little bit, but we've climbed 5 meters. Between there and here, we've actually dropped. We've dropped 3 meters because they're 70 to 67. Okay, so does that make sense? That the numbers represent how high we are, and the line shows everywhere that's that same height. Now, if we move across to Spring Hill and Mill Hill, obviously the clue's in the name, these are 2 hills in the area, then the numbers are a bit higher. Now we're up to 90 meters above sea level. So this is the peak of the hill. So the top of the hill is 90 meters. In fact, the very peak is this little triangle here. The little triangle symbol shows us that that's the absolute top of the hill, and it's 96 meters. Okay, but generally that area there is about 90 meters above sea level. And then we can gradually drop down to 75, down to 70, down to 67. And when we're actually in the village itself, we're probably around 67. I'm just looking around. This contour line here, which snakes there, is back up to 70. So through the village, it's pretty level. We're running down the middle of sort of a valley. We've got a contour line on this side and a contour line on that side, but nothing much in the middle. It's all quite level through the village. But there you go. So we're just looking out for these brown lines today. And by recognizing the brown lines, we can recognize the height of the land and if the slopes are steep or if the slopes are shallow. Now, here we go. So at the top, we've got a sort of a 3D picture of two hills. And you can see the lines are showing where everything is the same height. So that line going around the top of the hill, everything there is 40 meters above sea level. Below it, this line here, going all the way around the back as well, everything's 30 meters, 20 meters, 10 meters. And then what happens is that is all sort of squished down to become a flat map. Okay, so there's a 2-dimensional version of the three-dimensional image. And we can see we've got the very, very top of the mountain, which is this circle in the middle. And then the next line around is 40, because that's the next indicator we've got. Then we've got 30, 20, 10. And then below the 10, we're down to sea level. We're down to 0. And this darker grey area would be the sea. Okay. Now, this is a very, very busy contour map because this one is from a mountain range. You can see we've got some really big numbers here. Now, the reason I've got this one is because it's mountains, there are a lot of contour lines. There's a lot of changes in height. And what happens is if the contours are really, really close together, then it means that the ground is changing height really quickly. So it's a really steep bit of mountain. So if we look at this area over here, you can see that the dark line is every 50 meters. So this line here is 200 meters above sea level. And then by this dark line, we're already at 250 meters above sea level. So in a very, very short space of time, we've gone 200, 210, 220, 230, 240, 250 meters above sea level. So we've changed height really quickly. That means that's a steep slope. So if you're walking and you can see that that's a really steep slope, you might choose to go a different way because that might not be safe. And then we get to 250 and then again, really close together. So it's really steep from 250, 60, 270, 280, 290, up to 300 meters. So that slope there is really steep. All the contours are close together. If, however, we come down here, there's bigger gaps. That means it's taking us a bit longer to get higher. So in this area here, from 150 to 160, 160 to 170 to 180 to 190 to 200, that distance there is a lot bigger. So that means we're able to walk further without climbing too quickly. So that's a shallow slope. Okay, does that make sense? So if the contours are really tightly packed, really close together, it means that you're climbing very, very quickly. If they are spaced further apart, then it's not very steep. So the slope is shallow and it should be easier to walk. Okay. Now, here's your first test for today. Can you match the contour patterns to the hills? Okay, so which set of contours do you think matches the hills? We'll talk them through, so don't worry. But first of all, have a go, have a guess. Which do you think matches? Let's have a look. We'll look at number one first of all. Now, number one, there are two raised bits, but this one has got a higher, so let's call them hill 1 and hill 2. Hill 2 has got a few more contour lines, so hill 2 goes higher. So we're looking for a hill where there's two hills, but one of them is higher than the other, and it's the one on the right that's higher. So it's that one. Can you see? So it's got two raised bits, but this one is quite a bit lower. This second hill, there's a few more contours taking it higher. So 1 is the same as B. What about 2? 2 is just one hill, and it goes right the way up to quite a sharp peak at the top. So that's E. Okay, keeps gradually climbing and climbing and climbing to quite a sharp peak at the top. 3, again, like 1, we've got two hills, but they're both at the same height. They've both got the same number of contours as they climb to their peaks. So 3 is the same as D. Two hills, both of them similar height. But there's only two contour lines towards the top. So it means the middle bit isn't very deep. Now, for 4, you can see the peak of this hill is on the left-hand side. So which of those shapes has the peak of its hill on the left? There you go. 4 matches up with C. 5, the peak is on the right, but it's quite a large, flat top. You see on 4, it's a small contour at the top, meaning it's quite a pointy peak. But this one's got a large, flat peak, and it's on the right-hand side. So 5 matches with F. And then 6, we've got 2 peaks, but each of the hills has got lots of contours, which means there's a big dip in between them. So on number 3, the 2 hills, there weren't a lot of contours. So it was quite a shallow valley in between. But this one, there's a lot of contours in each hill. So each hill is quite high with quite a deep valley in between. So 6 is matching with A. Okay. I hope that makes sense, because your task today revolves around trying to translate these contour patterns into the hills. So here you go. Your task for today is to match the hills on the left to their contour lines on the right. Which of these contour lines matches these shapes of hills? You don't need to draw anything. All you need to write is 1A, 2F, 3C, 4D, whatever you think. Now, those are incorrect. Do not copy 1A, 2F. They're the wrong answers. But that's all you need to do as far as your answers are concerned. Write a number and write a letter. You don't need to do the drawing unless you want to. But all I need from you is a number and a letter. Okay? So there's your challenge for today. Let's see if you can recognize what these contours mean and how it shows how the land is shaped. So clearly, if there are 3 circles, then you're looking for a 3-peaked hill. If there are more contours, so we're looking at F now, if there are more contours on that middle one, then that middle hill is a little bit higher than the 2 either side. Okay. If there's only 2 little ovally shapes, then there's 2 hills. You can see it's only got 1 contour in each one, so it's not raised very high above the rest of the land. 1 oval in the middle means just 1 peak to that hill. So have a go, work your way through and answering with a number and a letter. Okay, well, that's the end of today's session. We'll carry on with contours next time, but for now, I'll leave you to it. Stay safe, look after those around you, and I will see you all very soon.